Wasteland for Santa Rosa. Green spring grass on the hills had cured by June, and by July gone woolly and brown. It crackled underfoot, desiccated, while within the clamor of live oaks, an infestation of tiny larvae clung to the underleaves, feeding between the veins. Their frass, that fine dandruff of excrement and boring dust, tinkled as it dropped onto leaves below the limbs. You could hear it 20 feet away, tinkling. Across the valley, on Sugarloaf Ridge, the full moon showed up, like a girl doing cartwheels. No one goes on living the life that isn't there. Below a vast column of smoke, heat, flame, and wind, I rose, swaying and tottering on my erratic vortex, extemporizing my own extreme weather, sucking up acres of scorched topsoil and spinning it outward in a burning sleet of filth and embers that catapulted me forward with my mouth open in every direction at once. So I came for you, churning, turning the present into purgatory, because I need to turn everything to tragedy before I can see it, because it must be leavened with remorse for the feeling to rise. Wasteland. You will forever regret the petty righteous cruelties you acted out on her. The neem tree without blossoms, the twig girdler, the burying beetle, a yellow and black apple borer with its disgusting stench, which decimated the garden while you were distracted, right when she was leading you out of something, a laceration inside a laceration, into which you tugged her back each night until nothing was left between you but a fear of aging and your unwearying self-concern. That night, the last night before your so-called return, she sent you a note. Baby, I miss you. Imagine you're sitting in your leather swivel chair with your silk boxers on. I'll lift my dress a little and sit on you. You won't have trouble sliding into me. My back to you, your hands inside my sleeves. Look up and the horizon line has gone red as a transparent artery, while below you an alligator lizard continues to slide down the warm ash of the Long Valley caldera to dig out her nest in toxic fumes. The years of your footsteps have chewed a worn path into lichen spotting tough around the rim. You've lost your cadence. No one needs to tell you that. Her absence goes through and through you like a wince through crumbling bedrock. Nothing remains in session but the Congress of Ants.
Hi everyone, I'm Gillian Conoley. It is November 2nd, one day before the election, feeling pretty nervous. Sending love out to everyone, hoping sometime later this week we're all celebrating, still breathing. Thank you, LA Times Book Festival and Beyond Baroque and Quentin and Emmett and Elena for doing these recordings. I'm going to read from my new book, A Little More, Red Sun on the Human, new and selected, that just came out this year from Nightboat Books. And the poem I'll read is a new poem, When Lie Goes Live. The wind and the trees shuffle a sonic ephemera under which to feel stable, an hour spent half seeing stone soldiers in the plaza. In other centuries, was it harder to tell perception from paranoia, dissociation? One false fall yellows the leaves all the way to the parking lot. Cheekbones rent a helmet, an odd bend to a branch. Summer's last tiger lilies deepen. I dreamed my husband went to war last night. He would never dream that of me. The actuality of our malfunctioning disharmonies, steadily, slowly, the papier-mâché Statue of Liberty gets wheeled out to the baseball field for the Star-Spangled, and we laugh, but affectionately. I like a man leaning into white stucco, smoking his pack's last cigarette. Unknown to the drone, the surveillance cameras turned back on itself, an installation site-specific, the soft focus of his eyes turning to me while I hang on to my near-empty notebook's low, wide, white noise. Most streets, I sense a solid escape, another death, a rupture along each page's glue. Pieces of what people say get repeated internationally if they catch on long enough above the people sitting disinterestedly mute in a park. The man who went to war going AWOL by the alarm clock, a pork stew in the slow cooker. Ham hock for the feds who wouldn't know what to do with a ham hock, shake or consume. So tired of talking now, though I can't begin. I don't know how I could feed you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Jacobson. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm the Poet Laureate of Santa Fe. I'd like to thank Quentin Ring from Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center and Elena Karina Byrne from the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books for their support of poetry. I'm going to read two poems from my most recent collection, Not Into the Blossoms and Not Into the Air, published in 2019 by Free Verse Editions, Parlor Press. This first poem remembers Matthew Shepard, a young man who was murdered in Wyoming in 1998. Blood Moon, echoes of a hate crime. People are made of paper, love affairs, anything that tears easily. A pregnant woman stands under the lunar eclipse, carves a swirl into a tree. Her baby is born with this same mark on his thigh. It's just like the earth to come between the sun and the moon and cause this kind of mystery. Point at a rainbow and it will plummet and slice your fingers off. Use your lips instead to show others what you were looking at. Don't stand on high rocks or they will push you into the sky and you will be pressed like a flower in a book. People are made from rain showers, hatred, smears of spit, anything that might evaporate instantly. That night, the moon was a true blood red, not the pale rust of this moon this morning. An entire human body coated red with blood, except where a path of tears washed through. Don't stare at the moon, or it will follow you persistently, like a stray cat you have fed. Don't hold out your hands while the sun is shining, or you will burn continually with possibility. People are made of buckets of sand, sequins of clay, desire, anything that washes away easily. Don't inhale too deeply the scent of fallen leaves, pasted to the forest floor after a fresh rain, or you will be repeatedly stepped on. Don't count the seeds in a mound of bear scat, or just as many clouds will split open above your head. This next poem I wrote in November of 2016, shortly after the presidential election. Perfectly made. Northern flicker, you woke me from dark sleep. Your head slammed into my window, neck snapped as you dropped to the frozen ground. I had been dreaming of Gettysburg. Can you imagine? Our fathers brought forth a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal. So perfectly made, I put my nail between the split of your beak, pulled out the long worm of your tongue as if it were a measuring tape coming out of its case, let go and watched it coil back, then my fingers in your spotted underdown, a marvel, so warm in the bitter morning, I felt history toying with itself as I stretched your stiffening wings as far as they would spread and plucked out the stunning bright orange tail feathers, one after the next, each quill spilling a black Icarus ink into my palms. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Joshua Bennett, checking in from the quietest room in my home right outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and tonight I'll be sharing two poems from my most recent collection of poetry, Ode. The first is entitled Barber Song. Postmodern blackness blacksmith, straight razor reshaping self-esteem, you dream in geometries unreachable by any other means. Speak in entire phrases abandon standard American etymology, hence you liberate waves from the sea. Cornrows from the cornfield, reclaim fade, so I now hear the word and imagine only abundance. Caesar never meant anything to me, but a cut so close you could see the shimmer of a man's thinking. You are how we first learned to bend language built to unmake us, accept implausible risk. Some much older man, shaver in hand like a baton full of wasps' gossip, asking, with the grain or against. And the question feels damn near existential, given this is the only place we can live in such thoughtless proximity to another person's open hands, be held by the face, ask outright to be made glamorous, shaped by your polymathic brilliance, you bi-weekly psychoanalyst. First stop before funeral, before wedding and block party alike, you soothsayer, cooing children to calm as they sit in the chair for the first time, as still a storm as one might reasonably expect. You ethicist, defending hairlines at all cost, your vigilance keeping online and otherwise slander at bay. Philosopher king, thesaurus in the drawer, dominoes and scotch and barbasol adorning your countertop, right above the chorus line of clippers swaying to the clamor of checkmates and offhand insults now filling the shop, each moving as if the unfettered locks of some great metal monster, some faraway watcher, and you, guardian of it all, clean as a pope. My second and final poem is for my father, who right now is in New York. I miss him and I'm excited to see him again and to hang out with him and have him spend some time with his grandson, my boy August, who's downstairs as I read these. This is America Will Be, after Langston Hughes. I am now at the age where my father calls me brother when we say goodbye. Take care of yourself, brother, he whispers a half beat before we hang up the phone, and it is as if some great bridge has unfolded over the air between us. He is 68 years old. He was born in the throat of Jim Crow, Alabama, one of 10 children, their bodies side by side in the kitchen each morning, like a pair of hands exulting. Over breakfast, I ask him to tell me the hardest thing about going to school back then, expecting some history I've already memorized. Boycotts and attack dogs, fire hoses, Bull Connor and his personal tank, candy paint shining white as a slaver's ghost. He says, having to read the Canterbury Tales. He says, eating lunch alone. Now, I hear the word America and think first of my father's loneliness, of the hands holding the pens that stabbed him as he walked through the hallway, unclenched palms settling onto a wooden desk, taking notes, trying to pretend the shame didn't feel like an inheritance. You say, democracy. And I see the men holding documents that sent him off to war a year later, Motown blaring from a country boy's bunker as napalm scarred the sky into jigsaw patterns, his eyes opened wide as the blooming blue heart of the light bulb in a Crown Heights basement where he and my mother will dance for the first time, their bodies swaying like rockets in the impossible dark. And yes, I know that this is more than likely not what you mean when you sing liberty, but it is the only kind I know or can readily claim. The times where those hunted by history are underground and somehow still daring to love what they cannot hold or fully fathom, when the stranger is not a threat but the promise of a different ending. I woke up this morning and there were men on television lauding a wall big enough to box out an entire world. Families torn with the stroke of a pen. Citizenship, little more than some garment that can be stolen or reduced to cinder at a tyrant's whim. My father knows this, grew up knowing this, witnessed firsthand the firebombs, the Klan, multiple messiahs, love-soaked and shot through. Somehow still believes in this grand, blood-stained experiment, still votes, still prays that his children might make a life unlike any he has ever seen. He looks at me like the promise of another cosmos, and I never know what to tell him. All of the books in my head have made me cynical and distant, but there's a choir in him that calls me forward. My disbelief, built as it is from the bricks of his belief, not in any America you might see or network news or hear heralded before a football game, but in the quiet power of Sam Cooke singing that he was born by a river that remains unnamed, that he runs alongside to this day, some vast and future country, some nation within a nation, black as candor, loud as the sound of my father's unfettered laughter over cheese, eggs, and coffee, his eyes shut tight as armories, his fists unclenched as if he were invincible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paige Hill Starzinger, and I'm reading from my new poetry collection, Vortex Street, which just came out from Barrow Street Press in June 2020. It is a pandemic baby, and it is about loss. It's about loss of parents and the realization that I will not have a child. But it's also has love stories and is about a journey to a new life. The first poem I'm going to read is a dialogue. And what's helpful to know is that when I refer to X near the end of it, I'm referring to AIX, as in Aix-en-Provence, a town in the south of France. My unborn child says to me, "You are a mouse in a dovecoat." An apron with hands. "That's what I didn't want to be," I replied. "It's taken you a long time to catch on." "But is it a race?" Time grew tired waiting. "He's sexist. You're binary." I don't think I was strategic. No, you wanted to be free of the past, untethered, to step into a stream like your mother, walk one narrow slice of water after another, mayflies rising, a world constantly changing, shimmering. You felt this was New York. That sounds right. See, I knew you before you saw the stream. I lay inside you when you curled within your mother. I was one of your last 2 eggs. You saw me on the sonogram, remember? I look at my right thumbnail, misshapen from picking at cuticles. I can't see this child now, but for the voice, we come accidentally and try to find our place. I have been hungry before in the south of France, the cypress, the picnics, the boys' lips, simply too animal, unprotected we were. But everything else receded, a blaze of heat pushing outward, filling me, probably a late period, so I went to his doctor and he recommended a wash. Just from the pharmacy, nothing much. Yes, I recall, X comes from Latin for water. You have never been ready. I was pursuing the boy, and then you didn't trust your body again. I think it scared me. You worry too much about the past. Stop dwelling there. Where did you get so bossy? I mean definitive. I got it from you, dear. In this book, the narrator revises throughout, and in this next poem I'm going to read, she does it most directly. The title is the letter O plus the letter O, and it echoes the female chromosome XX. It also refers to the ovaries, the pair, as well as among other things. Oh. Likely, it happened in a different way. It's a story I can rewrite. It's my story. I can rewrite it. There are things to see clearly. A, I never went out of my way to have a child. B, the endometriosis was severe. I lost an ovary, appendix. C, I had choices. Others took them, plural. People can and will adapt, adopt. Grief is something to revise, or to sit with quietly, try to sit with quietly. Even the quietly is difficult, itchy. See, I am fearful of something going in my body, afraid of not taking proper care. This is not going well. I'd like to end as soon as possible. Ooplasm is the yolk of the ovum, germinal, nutritive, paired and the ovaries suspended, tethered by ligaments to the peritoneal cavity. These are facts one can start with. I'd like to thank Barrow Street Press for publishing Vortex Street, and to the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books for inviting me to read from Vortex Street. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And my name is Mark Irwin. I'm going to read 3 poems from my new collection, Shimmer, which won the Philip Levine Prize in Poetry and was published by Anhinga Press. There's a wonderful Sarah Charlesworth image on the cover of this, of a man falling toward the city of Toronto. If you don't know her work, I highly recommend it. The first poem I'm going to read is a sonnet in blank verse called In Autumn. When within ourselves we feel the autumn, I become very still, a kind of singing, and try to move like all things green in one direction. When within ourselves the autumn moves, thickening like honey, that light we smear on faces and hands, then touch the far within one another, something like autumn. And I think when those who knew the dead, when they fall asleep, then what? Then what in autumn, when I always feel I'm writing in red pencil on a piece of paper growing in thickness, the way a pumpkin does, traveling at fantastic speed toward orange, toward rot. When in autumn I remember that we are cold smitten as I continue smearing red on this precipice, this ledge of paper over which I lean, trying to touch those I love, their bodies rusting as I keep writing, sketching their red hands, faces lusting for green. The second poem I'm going to read is the title poem of the collection, which is entitled Shimmer. And my work is interested in the interface between the natural world, electronic communication, and cities. This particular poem has a reference to the Ilulissat Glacier, which is in Greenland and has retreated 50% in the last 10 years. Good thing there's no global warming. Shimmer. A high-rise lobby mirror is lobbing suited bodies back and forth, while 10,000 blue screens flicker toward a new ocean we navigate from land. But to throw a window open with the entire force of your bodies, not the same as pushing a power button on a laptop or a remote electronic detonator. Watch this in your room, along with the Ilulissat Glacier melting, the portable become monstrous illusion. Like the man watching late TV who shoots his sleeping wife. Just a bad dream, he tells her, then soothes her back to sleep before shooting himself. The smoggy stars above the city's flickering lights, fire thrown down and back. Just look from any jet and marvel at the astral makeup, a grave of aging, prickling light. And the last poem I'm going to read is titled Open. You can also read this poem in Ted Kuzer's column, American Poetry in Life. Open. When they entered the house, which was a very large house, the way a cloud is large, the pages of their story seemed like cracks in the earth, a man's shirt or a woman's blouse. And the stranger in the house told them to make themselves at home in the house that was not their house, and told them to write down the 3 most important gifts in each of their lives, and then continued to explain how there were 3 doors in the house, and at each door they must forfeit one of these gifts, and how the real story always begins at the 3rd door, where each of them will pause and begin to crawl, leaving the field of time, where now you pause, touching the door of this page, wiping away each word, waiting to enter. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the virtual LA Times Festival of Books.
Bonjour, anin Heid E Erdrich indigenous jaganashimong magique indigo makwandodum. I'm Heid E Erdrich, and I introduce myself in Ojibwe. I'm from Minneapolis. I'm going to read to you from Little Big Bully, my new book, which just came out from Penguin on October 6th. And I'm reading a poem from the 2nd section of the book. And this is called Melania Won't Leave You, though she retires to her private island, Melanesia, where she learns the Tongan word, taboo. She wants to be set apart. She wants to be alone, though she will not stop talking to you. She sounds like mink secrets. Her eyes plead pools, her dark-lined eyes, lead-lined to survive. She groans a human groan, and yet you hate her. Hate her. Hate her, hate her. Get on that train, it keeps on going. Hate, 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 hate. This is not your nature. Someone dragged you here. Some bully who makes us seethe, makes us wish the bully dead. Then their work is done. But still this train roars on. Next stop, anyone who loved him. Anyone who would not leave him. The one who will not stop talking with her deeply leaden fur-lashed eyes. She begins a tale, something shimmering and wise, but broken, so unknowable. She says again, all she ever wanted was to be unhunted. You hounds, she says, you unhumans, inhumans. She says it lower, over and over, rougher, until she gurs, until just sound, a mean sound, you know means you. I'm going to read a couple of short poems from the book. This one is called Untaught. Untaught the way the body switches like a road in the mountains. Untaught my own permission, my yes and my no. Untaught the dimension of loss, the rubber bubble of it expanding from the moment. Untaught the dwindling of enormity until it fit in me, actually in me, then grew out. Untaught the way to catch myself when falling into feeling. Untaught to swim the reedy slough of hurt or lust or hunger or hopelessness. Untaught, untutored, unimproved, the baby of the universe, egg, oh so new. Untaught my own math. My reduction, my dozens, my thousands, my lessons to unlearn. I feel like a fool, do you? A tarot deck fool, looking back to see if you were looking back at me. I'll trip right off that cliff. Once in North Dakota, in my actual childhood, I saw a hobo, that's what we called them then, with an actual red bandana on a stick. He tried to get me to walk under a bridge with him. He said he had a great gift. My bigger sister sniggered at that, or there'd be a red dress hanging in a tree for me, too. Which brings me back to that fool, tumbling ass over tea kettle into some gully, having fallen for it. Then dusting fool self's ass off, pick yourself up, start all over again. This is a world of men. This tarot deck, and sure, the world. And yet I won't give a single pronoun for it. We were both fools. We are all fools. Once in my actual adult life, in a hideous time of lies, our own stories were required of us. Fool though I feel, real and truly fucked though we may be, I picked my first person. I set my truth free. Fool, me fool, me fool me. Red language. If I heard the words you once used in our wild place, rough with scrub roses and sand, if your words came back gray and kind as mild winter, believe me, I'd still understand. Offer my own red language, my tongue to your tongue, so we recall what we once said that made us live, that made us choose to live. Wild turkey. Not the bottle, not the burn on the lips, lit throat glow, not even wild really, but a small town bird whose burgundy throat shimmers like nothing ever. A huge bird, impressive, who lurches and stalks me, window to window in this desert retreat. What does he want? Clearly he is lonely. Pecks his reflection and speaks to it in a low gubble, not gobble. Gobbles so tenderly. Soon as I think of him, his eye hits on me. We have watched each other for days. His shifting colors fascinate me, his territorial strut. But it is his bald and blue-red head, his old man habits and gait that move me. If I even think of him, I taste whiskey. Drunk on solitude, I'd talk to anybody. I try his language on my lips. His keen response burns like shame. Thank you.
Hello, LA Times Book Festival. I'm Tess Taylor. I'm here to read you a book of poems for and about California called Rift Zone, about living on this fault line that we call home. It has 2 quotes at the beginning. I'm going to share them with you. California is the product of a prolonged head-on collision between the leading western edge of North America and the floor of the Pacific Ocean as the continent overrode the ocean basin. The details are complicated, but the broad picture is not. And that is from The Roadside Geology of Northern California. And the other is, in the rift between what is going to happen and whatever we would wish to happen, poetry holds attention for a space. And that is from Seamus Heaney's Government of the Tongue. Preface, Pocket Geology. Atop the Earth's mantle, rock moving. Continents are milk skin floating on cocoa. A restless interior sweeps them along. In trenches, minerals decay. At the core, landmasses digest themselves. The crust does not move in one piece, but in segments. Mostly these carry the continent with them, but sometimes continent and mantle uncouple, then blocks tilt like sidewalk on unstable ground. Here's a bit of that unstable ground. 6th grade, 1988. No one explained the reasons Dana found that spring to bring her brother's gun to school, triggers that led her to threaten to shoot you bitches. We were nubbly by the morning glories, hadn't scattered different ways. We were playing tetherball. I remember Sierra Birch's thin legs, yet running, a shrill voice yelling, "Call the teacher." In high noon California sun, Dana's palm was shaking, her face tight with fear or anger. In dream time, big men came to cuff her, and I heard her whimper, saw her lean girl's body fall. This year I found a photograph, Dana and her friend Manon, mug for my frame. Mischievous grins, split baby cheeks, ponytails bustle in the wind. It came back like a rusty fountain, a smell of chalk and 6th grade funk. We were learning fractions. That day we watched her disappear, heard the big door shut, the silence after. Decades floated over all our bodies. All the schools have drills for guns now. None of this names how it feels to look back 30 years and find this odd remainder. Bright and on the verge of life, as if we are yet unhurt. There's Dana, smiling. In fire season, I wanted to read a little bit of our other season, rainy season. So let's just project ourselves forward into that beautiful moment of green. Rainy season. Season of mud, of swollen gullies, storms lashing off the Pacific, flinging wet across our solstice months. We call this bitter damp the winter, but it is different than rosy cheeks or blizzards or catalogs of kids in reindeer sweaters. Our winter turns the hillsides emerald. Suburbs reveal thoughtless paving, drains gargle now where salmon spawned. Plum blossoms eddy next to candy wrappers. Between storms, the light is mercury. Huge wet sets hillsides careening, hurtling down what fault line just thrust up. Now ferns glisten, redwoods blacken, now cold buckeye seed and lemons come. In rain, streets grow riverine, ferrying our cargo to the ocean. Oh, cold spray and green reclaiming, in you we are all tributaries. I'm going to close with the last poem for the book, and it is called Envoy, San Francisco. And it is about the fact that under San Francisco, there are a number of gold rush ships. A number of the ships, wharves, and other infrastructure of San Francisco's gold rush waterfront lie buried beneath the streets and sidewalks. Gold Rush Port, Maritime Archaeology of San Francisco's waterfront. City of shipwrecks, city of water, sand hills where mountain lions prowled above windjammers, city whose first Anglo historians proclaimed themselves to be the only modern progress and promised to sweep away forerunners, and wanted to bind the world's many peoples, and with their new port, do to China what the British had done to India, but sooner. City of gold rush and bust and boom, city of mudflat and private wharves, buildings to ships, ships into buildings, forests to everything, city of old growth and redwood pilings, city of whores and Mackinaw blankets, of Irish whiskey and fireproof paint, of schooners abandoned for gold fields, the Niantic, the Apollo, the General Harrison, city whose abandoned ships became floating opium dens next to floating prisons, city of otter pelts and shovel salesmen whose white settlers funded their own micro-genocides, city of quick fires and tallow and opium, of myrrh eggs stolen off the Farallons, city of landfill and movable real estate, where right now a woman in underwear howls in the street and a barefoot teenager scratches his sores and an addict begged the last of my rice right outside this room where I am writing, city of fault line, city of water, as much as of anywhere. I am of you. Thank you so much. Take good care.
Hi, this is Didi Jackson. I'll be reading to you from my book Moonjar, which was released by Red Hen in April 2020. I would really like to thank the Broad Stage for hosting these readings, the LA Times Festival of Books Poetry Stage for helping to organize, and definitely the Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center for helping to put this all together for us this year. So without further ado, I'll read some poems. Signs for the Living. Sometimes, after the last snow in May, after the red-winged blackbird clutches the spine of the cattail, after he leans forward, droops his wings, and flashes his epaulets, I imagine shouldering the yellow center lines of the road. Near the recently thawed pond, within a long channel of construction, a man holding a sign. One side says slow, the other stop. Joy and sorrow always run like parallel lines. Inside the house, when I leave the lights on, small white moths come like a collection of worship, pulsing their wings up and up the window, as if in a frenzied trance-like dance. Some dervishes, others the penitent on shaky knees. The first few years after my husband's suicide, I wanted to be the penitent. I thought I deserved all the pain I could feel. The drill of the roadwork in late summer was a welcome, grinding music. Now, the yellow center lines are flung like braids behind me. Everyone says I should write a love poem, but I'm too busy. My dog is too loyal. A war could break out any minute. It might be a civil war. I don't know how to make charms, and I've never owned an amulet. These horns and hooves never let me rest comfortably. It is better when looking at sculpture and fine art to keep moving. The moon is a pod of milkweed. The seeds are the stars. An emerald beetle is destroying ash trees. Blood pools in surprising areas away from the mortal wounds. In death, his eyes were closed and glued. He could not see me even when he was alive. My father wanted to be a preacher. So did his father. I find clementines too bitter. My son remembers the last words he said to him. My scars feel like fish moving under my flesh. The winds are too strong in my new home. We lose power often. I have fallen in love with the snow. Listen. Like 100 gray years, the river stones are layered in piles near the shed where mourning doves slow their peck and bobble to listen to a chorus of listening. Small buds on the lilac perk up. A cardinal's torpedoed call comes in slow waves of 4, round and round. It's a love call, a call to make himself known to himself. The stones listen harder, decipher the song, attempt to offer back its echo, but fail. This is not a poem of coming spring. This is a poem well aware that gray flesh is dead flesh. All of the ripe listening comes at a cost. The first sky is in all skies. The first song is in all songs. And the last poem I'll read is the title poem, and I want to thank you for listening. I hope everyone who is joining me in this video and all the other readers is safe and well in these days. Moonjar. My wedding ring is missing one small diamond, and I like it that way, a reminder of the imperfect of all of us, like that keyhole size of grief that remains crystalline. In Korea, ceramicists for centuries have made moon jars testimony to the virtue of modesty, asymmetrical warping on the wheel, slumping in the pine-heated kiln, impurities when fired, black dots and pocks on its surface like freckles on skin. I have been kept awake so many nights by the moon, its pull on the pines and night birds, and who, like a monk, keeps a sharp order of time. Never a perfect sphere, the milky moon jar joins 2 clay hemispheres into one. When the light of the moon finds me, I am the color of everything in the winter night. Thank you.
My name is Patricia Smith, and I watch a lot of bad movies. This first poem I wrote after watching, what was it, Clash of the Titans, you know, when Medusa was there and Jason was trying to get Medusa, and I was like, I wonder how Medusa became Medusa. And she became Medusa because she made love to Poseidon in Athena's temple, and Athena was like, oh no, you didn't. So this is a poem about the changes that Medusa's going through. It's in Medusa's voice. 3-minute introduction, 1-minute poem. Poseidon was easier than most. He calls himself a god, but he fell beneath my fingers with more shaking than any mortal. He wept when my robe fell from my shoulders. I made him bend his back for me, listen to his screams break like waves. We defile that temple the way it should be defiled, squirming and bucking our way from corner to corner. You know, the bitch goddess probably got a real kick out of that. I'm sure I'll be hearing from her. She'll give me nightmares for a week or so, that I can handle. Or she'll turn the water in my well into blood. I'll scream when I see it, and that'll be that. Maybe my first child will be born with the head of a fish. I'm not even sure it was worth it. Poseidon pounding away at me like a madman, losing his immortal mind because of the way my copper skin swells in moonlight. Now my arms smoke and itch. Hard scales are rising on my wrists like armor. Come on, Athena. He was just another lay, and not a particularly good one at that, even though he could spit steam from his fingers. I won't touch him again. Promise. And we didn't mean to drop to our knees in your temple, but our bodies were so hot and misaligned. It's not every day a gal gets to sample a god. You know that. Why are you being so rough on me? I feel my eyes twisting, the lids crusting over and boiling, the pupils glowing like red coals. Athena, woman to woman, could you have resisted him? Would you have been able to wait for the proper place, the right moment to jump those immortal bones? Now my feet are tangled with hair, my ears are gone, my back is curving and my lips have grown numb. Damn it, Athena! Take away my father's gold, send me away to live with lepers, give me a pimple or two. But my face, to have men never again gaze at my face, growing stupid in anticipation of that first touch, how can any woman live like that? How can I watch their warm bodies turn to rock when their only sin was desiring me? They just want to see me sweat. They just want to touch my face and run their fingers through my hair. Is it moving? And the next poem I'm going to read is from the book Incendiary Art. Incendiary Art, Ferguson, 2014. They should have left him there to be the center of his own altar. Shat upon, he would have flowered, his empty hands tucked, ass upended like a newborn. The lengthy streak of browning blood could be a sanctified walkway for the church ladies, for the pokers with their sticks, for the lawbreakers and abiders, for that new kind of worship. They should have taken advantage of those 14,400 seconds and thought it over for 14,000 more. How sobering it would be. Breathless icon as traffic circle. Every day, Chevys and livery cabs inching around the stain of him. Shriekers on the school bus tasting his blossoming funk in their clothes, having long ago given up counting flies. They should have left his body steaming on the asphalt, while passenger side doors wrenched from 80s sedans, flaming barrels of garbage, charred shards of drugstore, and bare-chested boys, beautiful and bullseyed, blurred past in tribute. Black lives matter most when they are in motion. The hurdle and reverb matter. The rushed melody of fist, the shudderings of a scorched throat matter. The engine that moves us toward each damnable dawn matters. They should have left him there as proof. Eventually, the embers would have died in his hair. Thank you.